Okay, so here's what we have in the app so far. Up to chapter 4 I just sort of followed along and got everything in there. But in terms of the previous button, as you can see, similar to the next button, I added a binding.setOnClickListener, which nicely enough, we just have to call the update question function, and as you can see, I made a move to previous instead of move to next, which I'll show in a second. None of this changed. This is all consistent, obviously. Yeah. So now, and nothing changed in here. If we go to quiz view model, I did not get rid of anything. Everything's in there still. The only thing is I added this move to previous function, where the index gets iterated backwards by subtracting 1, adding the size of the number of questions, and taking the mod of that and the size of the questions. So yeah, as I said, nothing else changed there. In the strings.xml file, as you can see, nothing changed, just added a previous button, and as expected, it would have that as the text. And going to the main activity, this is where most of the changes happened. It's looking good, so this is all here before. But when we get to this, so I added the previous button here above the next button because that way it'll go left to right. I could have done them in the other order, but this is more kind of user friendly and intuitive, in my opinion. So I added linear layout, match parent, wrap content, get it to the bottom so it's under these next to the true and false buttons, and have it centered horizontally. I was having it for a while, it was stacking the two, the previous and the next button, but this seemed to fix it by getting it centered horizontal and the orientation horizontal. As expected, the ID is Prev button. All this is very much just like the next button, except as you can see, I added a drawable arrow left as well, which is the same process as we did for the right, just going into file, new, drawable resource file. There's a couple ways to do it, but that's how I did it. So then, yep, so that's how I got that in there. And now, so like the next button, notice the icon gravity is at the end, meaning the arrow would be at the right of it. But to have icon gravity at the start means it would put the left arrow to the left of the word Prev. So it just looks better. So I'll show you it working in a second. I just want to make sure that's everything I believe it is. Okay. So now, just build it and run it. I synced the Gradle file before too. I didn't have to change anything with the Gradle file, but I should say that differently. I did end up having to change something with the Gradle file, but it was because for some reason in this main activity, it stopped recognizing the activity main binding. I'm not sure why. It's probably like a version bug sort of thing going on. And when I was looking online, somebody fixed it just by adding data binding true. So I did that to get it to run nicely. So now it's running. As you can see, loads up nicely. These are this is what I meant by having it at the start instead of the end. Like this would be the end, this would be the start. So let's see, let's say we get it correct, that toast comes up, and then we can go next. Pacific Ocean is larger, say false, incorrect. As you can see, I got it wrong, that toast comes up. And just to test the previous button, I'll go back, and that's the same question we had before. This time I got it wrong. This time I got this one right. Just sort of running through them to show that the toasts work and the previous and next buttons work. So source analysis in Egypt, correct, incorrect. I do like, so that works. And if you remember, going back, the Suez Canal, sorry, that was the last question. So this is working well. And really the ultimate test is to go all the way back to this first question, because this is where it would fail, is to hit previous at the first question. That's where my cause for concern would be, because that the index is 0, so it's got to reset. But that was the last question. Lake Baikal is the world's deepest freshwater lake, which is true. As you can see, if I go back through it again, it's the last question, so that all lines up as expected through index 0 through 5. It hits all these questions. Previous button works, next button works, the toasts all work, and the app is running smoothly. So that was the updates that I made to the current code that we have in order to suit the needs of adding a previous button.